You know, I'm so honored to kick off our new season in 2023 with Alan Dershowitz. Alan Dershowitz is one of the most celebrated lawyers in the world, and I'll never forget when he was going through his cancel culture. You know, it's interesting when people make allegations against you, you assume that the person is guilty. I mean, I don't know why people naturally want to beat up on people who are successful. They want to see them knocked down a notch or two. And so there was always this cloud over Mr. Dershowitz as is being associated with Jeffrey Epstein. And then all of a sudden, I just happened to be reading where the lawsuit was tossed out. And I thought I read where she said, well, maybe my memory didn't serve me right. I don't think it was Mr. Epstein at all. And I said to myself, how many people have told that story? And I said, where does this man go to get his reputation and his credibility back? So to start off the new year, I wanted to have my man, who I've known for ages, on to talk about the fact that you're exonerated.
Well, I appreciate that. As you know, in 2014, an allegation was made that I had sexual contact with an 18-whatever-year-old woman, and I denied it categorically, completely. I wrote a book disproving it absolutely. And then finally, after all these years, she, quote, recognized that she may have made a mistake in identifying me as the person with whom she had sex. Look, it's a widespread problem. Today, after the Me Too movement, any accusation of sexual misconduct is believed. There's a sexist notion that women always tell the truth. By the way, it's not only women who often lie about accusations, it's their lawyers, many of them male, some of them female, who encourage them to lie because there's a gold pot at the end of the rainbow. I have a former student who represents a lot of Hollywood stars, and she told me she's now writing several checks per month for $100,000, $200,000 based on accusations of misconduct against Hollywood stars by people they never even met, And yet, if the accusation comes out, their careers are done. So it's cheap at any price to pay a couple of $100,000 to get rid of this thing. Well, you'll know that in my situation, where the woman acknowledged that she now remembers that she might have made a mistake, I didn't pay a penny. I refused to pay a single penny. And the reason why I have insisted on my innocence right from the beginning, knowing it would cause some publicity, I could have just denied it categorically. But I wanted to take on this whole issue, and I'm somebody who's never had any sexual contact with anybody other than my wife during the relevant time period. So I have nothing to hide, nothing to lose by having the whole truth come out. And I still want the truth to come out. And there are still some hidden documents that my accusers have demanded be kept secret. I don't want anything kept secret. I want everything out there because I have absolutely nothing to hide, and I've never had anything to hide.
Do you think we ever get back to a mindset in the media and everywhere that a person is innocent until proven guilty?
I think we're a long way from that. I think that was what the framers of our Constitution intended. The major violations of that occurred, obviously, in the Ku Klux Klan period, where if an African-American man was accused even at looking improperly at a white woman, they were taken out and lynched. And obviously, what I experienced was nothing like that. But there have been false accusations of that kind going back more than 100 years, and you would think we'd recognize that and acknowledge it. I was in Israel recently, and I met the great-granddaughter of Alfred Dreyfus, the man who was falsely accused by the French government of being a spy for Germany and Austria. And he went to Devil's Island for years until it was proved conclusively that they had the wrong person, that another man named Esterhazy was guilty, not him. And that caused Theodor Herzl to realize that maybe the Jewish people needed their own state, and it was the beginning of Zionism in the state of Israel. So we've had this problem for a long time. It's not going to go away. It's become much worse as the result of the excesses of the Me Too movement and those who exploit it. You know, there was a great philosopher who once said, every cause becomes a movement, then the movement becomes a business, then the business becomes a racket. And that's what's happened to some aspects of the Me Too movement. Lawyers have turned it into a racket to collect money, destroy reputations, and threaten to destroy reputations in order to get more money. I'm glad I fought back. I will continue to fight for anybody who's wrongfully accused of sexual misconduct, as I have for my whole life. I never thought it would happen to me because I am, I've led such an innocent sexual life all my life. I'm not a player. I'm not a flirter. I don't touch people. I don't do anything of that kind. So I'm going to continue my fight for justice and for the presumption of innocence.
You know, when we come back with our final segment with you, because coming up later, Dr. Ben Carson will be talking to us about patriots. I want to talk to you about Trump in 2023, where you think this is headed. Get your assessment. Attorney Alan Dershowitz is our guest, and we'll be back. Kevin, quickly. You know, what I respect about you is that you have never been a partisan. It's not about left or right. Even when with former President Donald Trump and all his issues, you've always been fair-minded and trustworthy on this issue. Now that he's faced all these this legal firestorm, January 6th, the possibility of indictment, what is the truth and what do you think the future is for our former president, Mr. Dershowitz?
Well, it would be the worst thing forget about him being a former president. He's a future president. He's a man who wants to run. He's announced it against the current incumbent. And the idea that the current Justice Department, appointed by the man he's going to run against, would indict him and prevent him from running is just unconscionable and I think in many ways unconstitutional. And so I don't know what the facts are. The facts should come out. But this Congress should not be referring cases to the Justice Department. They shouldn't be releasing his tax returns. I'm in the middle of writing a book called Get Trump, How the Attempt to Prevent Trump from Running has Destroyed Civil Liberties. You know, I'm a liberal Democrat. I voted against him twice. If he runs again, I'll vote against him, depending on who he runs against, obviously. But I'm planning not to vote for him. But the idea that people are using such unconstitutional and improper means to prevent him from running is far more dangerous than anything he could possibly do to America.
What do you think he should do?
What do
you think President Trump should do that he's not doing?
Well, I tell you a few things he shouldn't be doing that he is doing. He shouldn't be having lunch with Kanye West, with Ye. He shouldn't be saying that the Constitution can be ignored if there's an unfair election. What I think he should be doing is focusing on the constitutional issues. He should be apologizing for his lunch with Ye. He should be taking back, he already has taken back the claim that you can ignore the Constitution. But he should be above it all and should be making arguments that apply to everybody, not just to him. After all, on the tax returns, today it's Trump's tax returns. Tomorrow it could be your tax returns or my tax returns or any of our viewers' tax returns, because now Congress has claimed the power to disclose all tax returns, even though the statute provides that tax returns are confidential.
You know, I saw that article in the New York Times making the same argument as you are. And it's one thing to release his taxes to the committee, but why would they, knowing what you know, these people are intelligent people, why would they want to release his taxes to the public?
Well, obviously, they want to hope that maybe the public will be upset, but the fact that he has good lawyers and good accountants and hasn't paid much in taxes, which is not a crime. The question is, why did the Supreme Court allow Congress to obtain his tax returns without requiring that they be kept confidential by Congress? I think there was a real slip-up here. There should never have been an excuse to make them public. You know, the committee said, we're not interested in his tax returns for purposes of looking at them. We're interested in legislation for the future. Well, the proof that that was never true is the fact that they've revealed them to the public. Obviously, the only purpose of getting them was to reveal them, to hurt him politically and to engage in partisanism. And now that the Republicans are going to be taking over the House, I'm concerned the Republicans will do the same thing. If I were Hunter Biden's lawyers, I'd be worried very much about his tax returns and indeed about President Biden's tax returns, although he's released them. So I don't think he has much to worry about. But other people in the administration whose tax returns haven't been made public probably will have their tax returns turned over to Congress and made public. Republicans will play by the same rules the Democrats played by.
You mentioned Hunter Biden. Should he have been indicted?
I don't know. I don't want to indict people. I'm very much against weaponization of the criminal justice system. He's being investigated, obviously, by an able U.S. attorney in Delaware. Let the chips fall where they may. The only point is that the same rules have to apply to the son of a president, to a former president, to a future president, and to the president himself. We have to have one rule for everybody, and that rule has to be fair and equal. It has to appear fair and equal, too.
And what are your thoughts on election reform? Do you think that the midterm elections prove that there is election integrity around the country, and there are very few incidents where there is voter fraud?
I think that's right, and I think it also proves that we could do a little bit better. Some of the voting machine issues are fairly serious. I'm involved in a couple of lawsuits relating to that because the counting companies, the companies that were hired by the government to do the counting, have refused to turn over their mechanisms, their algorithms, their inner workings. And I don't think they can do that. If they're performing a governmental function, counting votes, they have to act like the government, and they have to be able to reveal the way in which their machines operate so that we, the public, can decide whether we trust them or not. I think that's an important issue without going back at all to any of the past elections. I'm talking only about future elections.
Mr. Dershowitz, it's always a pleasure having you on. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Dr. Ben Carson. We wish you well. We always appreciate, as I say, your integrity and your fairness when it comes to this.
Because you also reflect fairness and integrity and the public's right to know all sides of every issue. So thank you for having me.
And thank you. And we'll be back with Dr. Ben Carson. You know, Dr. Carson chairs American Cornerstone. And, you know, people still think, for some reason, I'm still associated with Dr. Carson's business, but I'm not. And so I'm asked all the time, what is American Cornerstone? And I said, Little Patriots. And I said, you know what? I need to have Dr. Carson on to talk about this phenomenal work he's doing, returning our young boys to Little Patriots, being patriotic and very proud of being Americans again. And why this has not happened until 2023, I have no idea. Well, here we are. We have Dr. Carson as our guest, the chair and the founder of American Cornerstone Foundation. Talk to us about what it is, Dr. Carson, and what you have been able to accomplish in your efforts with these young men around the country.
Well, thank you, Armstrong, for this kind invitation. You know, I actually thought that I was going to retire after the 2020 election and really become good at golf and playing the piano and cruising around the world. But I rapidly recognized that I would not be able to enjoy myself watching the way that things were deteriorating in our country. And I think almost anybody that you talk to, regardless of which side of the aisle they sit on, would acknowledge the fact that we are deteriorating. We're losing prestige and power throughout the world. We have incredible social strife in our country. Educational endeavors are failing. And, you know, we have confusion about such basic things as what gender does a person ascribe to. And we said, you know, we need to bring some common sense back. So myself, along with some outstanding people from HUD, got together to create not only a think tank, but a do tank. We wanted to get people to concentrate again on those cornerstone principles that were essential to the development of our country, from our rise to nowhere to the pinnacle of the world in rapid succession. And it wasn't a coincidence. It was because of cornerstone principles like our faith, which was such an important part of who we were as a nation. We acknowledged our relationship with God and godly principles like love your neighbor, not cancel your neighbor if you disagree with them, not try to hurt people who disagree with you. That is anything but a godly principle. And then the principle of liberty, freedom to live your life as you please, as long as you're not infringing upon the rights of others. And that right of liberty comes from God and not from the government. And some people say, well, we have freedom of everything. We have freedom of speech, for instance, but do we really? When big tech and social media can shut you down, can basically cancel you with the compliance of the government, isn't that the same as if the government was doing it? And we need to really make these things clear to people so that they understand how freedoms can slip away. And we are still the beacon of freedom for the world. Although many people have tried to denigrate our nation and say it was horrible and systemically racist and unfair to people, if it were all that bad, why are all these people trying to get in here? Millions of people trying to get in here. They'd be trying to get out. And when they got here, they'd call their friends and relatives and say, don't come here. It's a horrible place. Obviously, that's not happening because that's not true. And then the cornerstone of community, the ability of people to work together, regardless of their belief systems. You know, this country was formed by little families, 20 families, 50, 100 families in isolation, 50 miles, 100 miles away from anybody else. Not only did they survive, but they thrived because they used their various skills and talents to work for the common good. And that allowed them to grow, to expand. If Mr. Jones broke his leg during harvest time, everybody else harvested his crops. It was not a question. That made a big difference. And then the last cornerstone, life, respect for life, from the womb to the tomb. And as we've moved away from that respect for life, we've moved away from our respect for each other. And then we have a pediatric component called Little Patriots. We call it the inoculation to indoctrination. We want our children to know who we are, what our principles are. So we have an online learning program, K through 5, which looks at all aspects of our history, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We don't try to hide anything. But an honest look at our history says there's a lot more good than there is bad and ugly. We shouldn't be trying to teach people based on the ugliness that has occurred. You know, slavery, some of the other things that have occurred, incarceration, and internment of the Japanese during World War II, various things that we are not proud of. But that does not characterize who we are as a nation. So we want children to understand who we are completely. We have a cartoon series that we recently added called Star Spangled Adventures, in which we have beautiful cartoons created by some of the best animators from Disney and other places who were not woke, by the way. And these are very entertaining but incredibly educational. There are workbooks that go along with them, teacher notes. They can be used in home schools, public schools, private schools. It's growing very, very rapidly. And it's nonpartisan. We're a 501c3 organization, and we're interested in helping to heal America. You know, we, the American people, are not each other's enemies. And we've got to stop allowing people to manipulate us and make us think that just because somebody has a different opinion, they're an enemy. They're an enemy of the state. You know, they're going to make America fall. You know, come on. We just have to get over that, because that is what will really destroy America.
Wow. You said a more than a mouthful. We're going to take a break and come back with some final thoughts of Dr. Carson on American Cornerstone. Dr. Carson, how does others join and participate?
You can go to AmericanCornerstone.org, and there's a whole display. I just talked about a couple of our programs. We have multiple programs, including things like Executive Branch for America that teaches people how the government actually works, how a bill is put together, because we want people to actually get involved with government. Don't just sit there and be a spectator. The country was designed for participation for the people, but they need to understand exactly how it works. We have interviews from head of the Office of Management and Budget, public liaison, various cabinet secretaries, all kinds of individuals to help you understand the intricacies of the government and hit the ground running when you go. We also have something called My American Story, the Anwar I American Story series, in which we talk to people who were born in other places who came to America. In many cases, they were in socialist countries, communist countries.
So what's the website, Dr. Carson, so they can see all this material? What's the website?
It's called AmericanCornerstone.org.
American.
You can go there.
Cornerstone.
Be entertained.
.org. Be entertained, fulfill, and feel like what it's like to be an American. Dr. Carson, thank you so much for joining us along with Alan Dershowitz. I'm Armstrong Williams. Happy 2023.